ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं कृष्णचैतन्यमीश्वरम् नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवसादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः. We are in the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. The 12th chapter is about Parikshit Maharaj. It is the birth of the Emperor Parikshit. And today we have to see from text 34 onwards, and we'll try to complete the chapter. And if possible, time permitting, we can even go to the next chapter. So, as mentioned, this chapter is titled The Birth of Emperor Parikshit. So, we are seeing the birth of Emperor Parikshit simply because that was one of the questions asked by the sages of Naimisharanya in the second set. The first set were the 6 famous questions, the second set were 3 questions, of which one was tell me about the birth of Parikshit, the activities, and how he passed away from this world. So, to speak about the birth of Parikshit first, Sage Shaunaka talks about how Parikshit was saved in the womb of his mother by the Supreme Lord. And then eventually it is mentioned that Parikshit Maharaj, he took birth at a very auspicious time when the zodiac had aligned very beautifully. And after he took birth, there were a lot of astrologers who had come and they made beautiful comparisons of how Parikshit would rule, his character, and all his activities were all predicted. They said how he'll be exactly like Lord Ram, how he would be like Shibi, and how he would be like so many other great personalities. All those comparisons were made. And after it was done, his naming ceremony was done. His name was chosen to be Parikshit simply because he examined everyone around him, trying to find the person whom he saw in his womb, in the womb of his mother. So after all that happened, the great Pandits, they were ready to leave, and our Yudhishthir Maharaj very nicely honored them. He gave them a very good dakshin. He honored them very nicely, and they all left. So after that, we will see what happens. That will be verse number 34. So at this point in time, after they left, we saw also a quick introduction that Yudhishthir Maharaj, he was considering performing an Ashwamedha Yajna to get free from all the sins that had incurred because of the war. And he realized that he didn't have enough funds. And understanding the wishes of his brother, the other brothers, and Krishna, taking the inputs from Krishna, they went and they collected sufficient riches from the king of Marutta. This is what we had seen. So, continuing from there, text number 34, we will see today. तेन संहृत्त संहारो धर्मपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः वाजिमेधस्तत्त्रिभिर्भीतो यज्ञैः संयजत् धरिम्. Can someone please read translation?
Hare Krishna
Mother,
Mataji. By those
Gurmani.
riches, the king could procure the ingredients for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious king Yudhishthira, who was very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead.
Jai Mataji. Thank you so much, Padmini Mataji. So it's the translation says, Padmini Mataji, by those riches the king could procure ingredients for 3 horse sacrifice. Which riches, Mataji? Padmini Mataji, which riches? Anyone would like to say which riches? By those riches the king could procure ingredients for 3 horse sacrifice.
Hello, Pranam
Rajaji?
Mataji.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, these riches were left by King Marutya, and Lord
Yeah,
Krishna
the
told
riches.
Arjuna, and all the gold was collected by Arjuna, so called Dhananjay, like that.
Yes,
Dhanvar
Prabhuji.
Pranam.
Anyways, so the riches that were left by King Marutta, he had
Sorry,
acquired.
Mataji, I got disconnected, Mataji.
I
So I
thought
couldn't.
so, yeah,
it
because yeah, suddenly you vanished, so I thought maybe you got disconnected. Yeah.
was raining heavily. There is a slight problem in the.
Oh, okay. Mm. So, by the riches that were procured from King Marut's sacrifice, Yudhishthir Maharaj could not perform just 1 horse sacrifice. He performed 3 Vajimedam. Ashwamedha or Vajimedha. Vajimedha is also a horse only. Vaji is also a horse. So you can either call it Ashwamedha or Vajimedha. So he performed 3 Vajimedha yajnas, Tribhi Pita. Vajimedha Tribhi. Yudhishthirah Vajimedaihi Tribihi. So he performed 3 horse sacrifice. And why did he perform 3 horse sacrifice? Because he wanted to get rid of the sun. He was very, very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra. And here, any thoughts? How is this pleasing to Lord Hari? Uh, just freestyle answer. Why do you think the Vajimedha Yajna is very pleasing to Lord Hari? Any thoughts? I mean, there are no right or wrong thoughts, but just wanted to brainstorm.
I think because he wanted the righteous king Yudhishthira to rule the
Hmm.
earth.
Yeah, he wanted King Yudhishthir to rule the earth. And performing sacrifices is definitely pleasing to the Supreme Lord. All sacrifices are aimed at pleasing the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord gets satisfied when such sacrifices mentioned in the Shastras are performed nice. That's the reason he's giving these sacrifices. So when scriptures are followed properly, the Supreme Lord Hari is pleased. And when everything is dedicated to the Supreme Lord and the
Maybe
Supreme Lord is pleased, everybody is pleased. Right?
Mataji, it gives peace and prosperity to devotees and citizens, right? That is
Yes.
the reason
Yes, correct, Mataji,
Hari is
100%.
pleased much more.
Yes, all these yajnas, they bring peace and prosperity to the entire kingdom, and Lord Hari gets pleased.
Is it, Mataji, is it
Mm.
possible that the horses get liberated
Yes, Prabhuji.
higher, body, like a human
Yes,
body?
100% Prabhuji. And Prabhupada also writes that in the purport, like you mentioned, that these animals that are sacrificed on the altar, they reach a very high destination, they get a new body. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. Yes, Prabhuji. So the Supreme Lord is always pleased by such regulated sacrifices. But then Prabhupada also mentions that in this age of Kali, all these animal sacrifices are banned. And he tells us what kind of sacrifice we should be doing. We all know it. The sacrifice for the age of Kali is chanting the holy names. So after Prabhupada describes this entire thing in the purport, he concludes saying there is no need to perform all these costly sacrifices. Rather, the only sacrifice we should all be doing is chanting the holy names, which is most pleasing to Krishna and beneficial for all living entities. Thank you so much, everybody. So we'll see the purport. So Maharaj Yudhishthir, he was very, very ideal and he was a very pious king. And he felt very bad after the war. And he felt there is so much mass killing in the war. and so much sins is accumulated because of this. So he wanted to get rid of these sins. And the suggestion given in Shastra to get rid of such mass sins is, especially for a king after the war, is to perform the Vajimedha Yajna or the Ashwamedha Yajna. And to perform Ashwamedha Yajna, it is very expensive, very, very expensive. And we saw in the previous verse how Yudhishthir Maharaj, he didn't have so much money from the taxes that he had collected. And also after a war, generally, the treasury is drained out, right? You don't have much money. So he was suggested that he should go and collect the money from Marukta's sacrifice, and that's what his brothers also did. And we saw how Yudhishthir's brother Arjuna is called as Dhananjaya because he acquired the wealth from Marukta's sacrifice. Now, Yudhishthir was he was a very sensible and sensitive king. So we saw that there was heaps and heaps of gold that was left by Maharaj Yudhishthir. But we should remember Maharaj Yudhishthir had used, Maharaj Marutta. Maharaj Marutta had used a lot of gold in the sacrifice. All the paraphernalia was made of gold. And the charity he gave to the Brahmanas was also given in gold. Now, so many Brahmanas had come, and all the Brahmanas were given proper treatment and they were given lots of gold. But the amount of gold that was given to the Brahmanas was so much that the Brahmanas couldn't even take it back. They couldn't even hold so much gold and take it back with them. So they had to drop all the gold. Not all the gold that was excess, they had to drop it right there and they could only go with some portion. But now Yudhishthir Maharaj, he knows in that place that there is plenty of gold available, and there is also gold that was left by the Brahmanas, that was already given in charity to the Brahmanas. Because the Brahmanas couldn't take it back home, they left it there. So now our Yudhishthir Maharaj is so sensible and sensitive that when he's taking the gold for his sacrifice, for his Vajimedha Yajna, what is he doing? He is not taking the gold that was given to the Brahmanas, though the Brahmanas left it. He only took the gold that was used in the sacrifice, the utensils that were used in the sacrifice that were thrown in dustbins. That's what Prabhupada says. See, the golden plates and utensils which were used in the sacrifice were thrown in the dustbin, and all such heaps of gold remained unclaimed property for a long time. And Yudhishthir collected that for the sacrifice. He did not touch the money that was already given in charity to the Brahmins, though the Brahmins left it and went. Okay, so this is what he did. And Prabhupada says the more astonishing thing is that no subject of the state also called such unclaimed gold for industrial enterprise or anything like that. So he didn't use it for his personal requirements, and he didn't use it inappropriately. What did he do? He used it only for the sake of sacrifice so that the Supreme Lord Hari can be pleased. Maharaj Yudhishthir also requestion, how do you say that? Requisitioned the heaps of gold for performing sacrifice and for pleasing the Supreme Lord Hari. Otherwise, he had no desire to collect it for his own treasury. See, we saw that Yudhishthir Maharaj's treasury was also almost drained out after the war. And he could have easily taken the gold coins that were left by the Brahmanas. He could have taken that excess gold and put it in his treasury. And it was unclaimed. He could have easily put it in his treasury, but he did not do that. He just collected enough gold that was absolutely required just for the sacrifice. That was the nature of Yudhishthir Maharaj. And talking about sacrifice, Prabhupada says that the reason why Yudhishthir Maharaj performed sacrifice is obviously because he was afraid of the sins that were committed in the battlefield. And even we also, we perform so many unintentional sins in our daily discharge of duty. And for that, to get relieved of the sinful reactions, we also have to perform sacrifices as revealed in scriptures. That's why there is this process of performing the Pancha Mahayajna. They do Pancha Sunu, it is called. Prabhupada says often in the purport. A Grihastha should perform 5 kinds of fire sacrifices. Why? To get rid of the sins that he is committing unintentionally. There is so much killing happening at the place of fire when we are cooking, when we are walking. When we are walking, we don't know how many uh, living entities we are smashing and killing. We don't even realize. Then when there is sweeping, right? Like that, in different activities, we are killing so many different living entities, knowingly or unknowingly. That is the reason in ancient times, 5 yajnas had to always be done within one's household. So any householder will continue to do that yajna. And finally, the same fire from that yajna is used to burn his body at the time of death. But in today's time and age, nobody has these yajnas and all that. So this was the tradition in the aim of, but however, we should understand, though that was the tradition to get rid of sins, the aim of such sacrifices, yes, the byproduct is you're getting rid of sins, but the ultimate aim of all such sacrifices is only for the satisfaction of Lord Hari. Lord Hari has mentioned it in the Shastra. When we do it in a consciousness that this is pleasing to Lord Hari, so I am doing it. We don't do any sacrifice for that matter for a benefit. Okay, the perfect Vaishnava way to do anything traditionally that is mentioned. We all are grastas, and sometimes we follow certain festivals. We may follow certain pujas, whatever we may do. Be it anything that we may do, we should always do it for the pleasure of Krishna. Not that I'm going to get some benefit out of it. But remember, you will get benefit and sins will be vanquished because of it. But the purpose, the consciousness with which we are doing it should be, this is pleasing to Lord Hari. Lord Hari has mentioned it in the scripture, so I am doing it. Just like Damodar Mas. Now we're having Kartik Vrat. So many people are doing Kartik Vrat. But then if we are doing Kartik Vrat because we want to lose weight, or if we're doing Kartik Vrat because I want to acquire some pious credits, or I have an ulterior motive, I want to become famous, or I want to become a great preacher, or I just want to achieve something out of it, then that Vrat is actually useless. Why? Because we are not doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. Whatever vrat, whatever festival, whatever it may be, it should be done with a pure state of mind, saying, no, this is pleasing to Krishna, so I'm doing it. That's all, period. If it is done for any other ulterior motive, then it may give you some side effects, but then what is the use? Right? It is not a sustained activity. And we should not say, I'm doing this vrat to please Krishna and be thinking of something else for our benefit. Then that is hypocrisy. So anyway, so Maharaj Yudhishthir, he did all these sacrifices purely for the pleasure of Krishna. And we also read from Srimad Bhagavatam and all the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita that one must perform sacrifice to remain happy in this world, right? The duty, and what is the ultimate beneficiary of the sacrifice? It is the Supreme Lord. So therefore, Bhagavatam says that the prime duty of human being is to satisfy the Supreme Lord by one's occupational duty. This is actually a very beautiful verse. I think it was one of our memorization verses as well. This is 1 to 13. Here. Atapumbe dvijashreshta varnashrama vibhagashaha swanushthasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshnam. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and others of life is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whatever we are doing within our Varna and Ashram, ultimately it should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, everyone should perform sacrifices. Yes, human life is meant for sacrifice. Rishabdev said, right? Everyone should do sacrifice. But what is the best sacrifice that one can do? Of course, the best sacrifice has been declared openly in the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come and told us openly what is the best sacrifice that one can do. The best sacrifice one can do in this age of Kali is chant the holy names. He has given us a very, very beautiful process. And we know that in this time and age, performing all these fire sacrifices, this huge Vajimeda Yajnas and Rajasuya Yajnas or Putra Kameshti Yajnas, all this is practically impossible because of several reasons, like the Ingredients itself are not pure. The brahmanas are not pure. Nobody is trained properly, and nobody has the capability of taking up such an austerity where they take a vrat and they are able to complete the sacrifice. So it is not practical in this age of Kali. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the most practical manner, which is chanting the holy names. However, remember that from the time we start our day, we are doing yajnas, right? The minute we wake up, we are chanting the holy names, and then we are like simple act of just offering bhoga to the Lord. Everything that is done is actually done in sacrifice. Yat karoshi yad ashnasi yad juhosi tadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Actually, as grihastas, our life is around that one verse, yat karoshi yad ashnasi. Though Shuddha Bhakti is the ultimate aim, we start with Mishra, Karma Mishra Bhakti, being in our particular Varna and Ashram. We at least start there. Day-to-day activities, we are doing Krishna Arpanam. That is what our life is meant to be, and that itself is a yajna. All our activities that we are doing is actually a yajna. And like Prabhuji mentioned in the class, in those days when they did this Ashwamedha Yajna or Gomedha Yajna, it is not that they ruthlessly just kill the animal. But however, Prabhupada very nicely, he says, the horse sacrifice yajna or the cow sacrifice yajna performed by Vedic regulations should not be misunderstood as process of killing animals. On the contrary, the animals that were offered in the yajna were rejuvenated. Prabhu very nicely told us. Immediately they were regenerated to a new span of life by the transcendental power of the Vedic hymns, and if it is properly chanted. If it is properly chanted. That's why in this time and age, such animal sacrifices are not recommended, because no Brahmin has the power to chant it properly. The Veda mantras are all practical, and the proof is the rejuvenation of the sacrificed animal. So this was the power of the Brahmanas. And we all know how later, when Kali Yuga had started, the Brahmanas were not qualified enough, and they were just sacrificing animals for the sake of flesh, right? The purpose of the sacrifice was forgotten. And eventually Buddha came, and then after Buddha, Shankaracharya had to come, again revive the Vedic tradition, and then after Shankaracharya, the Vaishnava Acharyas had to come, and finally Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he gave us the ultimate yajna, which is the Sankirtan yajna. So to save them all, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propounded the Sankirtan movement or yajna for all practical purposes. And the people of the present age are strongly recommended to follow this sure and recognized path. Prabhupada says it's a sure path, 100% success. Okay, it is a sure path. Second, it is recognized. It is recognized by Guru Parampara. So it is valid. That's what Prabhupada is telling me. It is a 100% valid path. And that is the path that we are all following. We are not asked to sacrifice animals. Okay. So let's continue and see what happened with Yudhishthir Maharaj. Ahuto Bhagavan Ragnya Yajayitva Dvijayinudripam Uvasa Katichin Masam Suhridam Priyakamyaya. Anyone would like to read the translation?
I can read one.
Hare Krishna. Mataji. Oh, Prabhu, continue, please.
Oh, thank you, Mataji. Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, being invited to the sacrifices by Maharaj Yudhishthir, saw to it that they were performed by qualified twice-born Brahmanas. After that, for the pleasure of the relatives, the Lord remained a few months.
Jai. So Krishna, he was invited to the sacrifice, and he ensured that the Brahmanas had performed it nicely. And he just didn't leave. He stayed back for the pleasure of the relatives, and he remained there for a few months. This is Krishna's trademark. He stays with his dear devotees. It's not that he just puts attendance and he runs away. He stays back with his devotees. We have seen how much he stayed back with Yudhishthira Maharaj earlier also. Yudhishthir was lamenting, Kunti was lamenting, everybody was stopping him. With great difficulty, he kept extending his stay because every other person kept stopping him. And then finally he left for Dwaraka. We saw how he left Hastinapur and then how he entered Dwaraka. And right after that, in the next two chapters, we are saying he's back here. So anyway, he comes for the sake of his devotees. So Lord Krishna was invited by Yudhishthir Maharaj and he was supervising the yajna because he wanted to support his elder cousin. And Prabhupada says here that these brahmanas, they were qualified brahmanas. He calls them qualified twice-born brahmanas, the ones who had performed the yajna. They were 100% qualified. And he says, if you just take birth in a brahmana family, that doesn't make you a brahmin. Uh, we are all actually like Sudras. We don't have the proper qualifications. And we should be called as Brahma Bandhus, not Brahmanas. If we are Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. If it just because a person is born in a Brahmin family doesn't make that person a Brahmin. Should become qualified to become a Brahmana. So that's why we, even in ISKCON, when we have the second Diksha, the Brahman Diksha, we say first you qualify yourself, right? You qualify yourself by various methods, like, for example, Bhakti Shastri is one of the qualifications. You should have read scriptures. You should be following a proper lifestyle. You should have develop good qualities. Actually, that is so important to become a Brahmana. It is not that, okay, I've achieved one title, Bhakti Shastri title, now I'm a Brahmin. No, we should develop the qualities of a Brahmin. Then we can truly become a Brahmin. So like that, Prabhupada mentions that if not, one is considered only a Brahma Bandhu. And remember when he talks about Ashwatthama, he says Ashwatthama was only a Brahma Bandhu. In the previous chapters, I think chapter 7 or something, Prabhupada talks about how Ashwatthama did not have the qualities of a Brahmana. Krishna himself called him just a Brahma Bandhu and he should be killed. So the other point that is brought out on this purport is that Lord Sri Krishna, he himself took the task of supervising. And this yajnas performed for him and he was supervising the yajna. And he was ensuring that the yajna was carried out by qualified twice-born Brahmins. So that was a very nice act by Sri Krishna. Then what happened? Tato rajñabhyanujñata Krishnaya sahabandhubihi yayau dvaravatim brahman sarjuno yadubir vrita. Anyone for translation?
O Shanika, therefore the Lord, having bade farewell to King Yudhishthira, Draupadi and other relatives, started for the city of Dwarka, accompanied by Arjuna and other members of the Yadu dynasty.
Right. So after everything was done, he stayed back for a while and then he bade farewell to Yudhishthira Maharaj, Draupadi and all the relatives. And finally, he was ready to leave. Okay, he was ready to leave to Dwarka. Okay. So now we are going to enter the next chapter, which is Dhritarashtra quits home. Why should Dhritarashtra quit home? We just saw Yudhishthir Maharaj became the king, right? Yudhishthir Maharaj took over the throne. He started performing sacrifices and he was properly, the kingdom was very good. Everything was great. Parikshit Maharaj was also born by now. Everything was going well. Now, things have to move because remember the question asked by the sages, they wanted to know the birth of Parikshit. They wanted to know about his activities and then how he ruled and finally his passing away. So for Parikshit Maharaj to take the throne, all the elders should first retire, right? The grandfather Yudhishthir has just taken over the throne and he's taking care of all the activities. He's doing Vajimeda Yajnas and so on. But what about the great grandfather who's still at home? He has to also retire. So therefore, we see this chapter, Dhritarashtra quits home. After Dhritarashtra quits home, then the Pandavas should also quit home. Then only Parikshit can sit on the throne. Then we can study the activities of Parikshit as a king. Right? So let's see how Dhritarashtra quit home. Sutta Uvacha. Vidurastirthayatrayam maitreyadatmano gatim Nyatvagat Dhastinapuram Tayavapta Vivistita. Anyone wants to read translation?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sri Suta, Sri Suta Goswami said, while traveling on pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of of the self from the great sage Maitreya and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired.
So this context is later elaborated in the third canto, the meeting between Maitreya and Vidura. This is mentioned in the third canto. We'll quickly tell the context so that you know what's happening. Actually, what happens is before this itself, Vidura, he quits the palace. Why does he quit the palace? Because he's very hurt by the words of Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhan. Duryodhan has been, he says something really like, disrespectful. Dhritarashtra is not listening to him, though Vidura constantly kept telling Dhritarashtra that he should not be staying in the palace. Duryodhan he disrespects him, and Vidura leaves his bow and he goes to the forest. Okay, this is all there in the third canto, and all of you already know a lot on Bhagavatam, so you already know this. So he's gone to the forest, and there in the forest he gets an opportunity to meet Maitreya Muni. Now, the context again is all elaborated in third canto. By now, you can imagine this is a scenario when Krishna has departed. Okay, this comes a little early because Shukdev, Sudha Goswami wants to talk about Dhritarashtra retiring. Okay, so that the next generations can take the throne. That is the reason he is talking this, though it is not in proper order. This comes later. But you can imagine now it was time for Krishna to leave this world. Krishna was ready and he went back. And when he was leaving the world, Uddhava and Maitreya were witness to Krishna's leaving this world. Okay, they were witness, they were there. Now, Maitreya had also seen this episode. So, Maitreya, when he's traveling in the forest, at that time, Vidura comes across Maitreya. And Maitreya was the one who gives the news to Vidura that Krishna has left this world. And Vidura gets knowledge of self realization from Maitreya that was instructed to Maitreya by the Lord. Okay, the Lord already knows that Vidura is going to come. Maitreya and Vidura are going to meet. So the Lord has given instructions, and Maitreya is also very knowledgeable. So when Vidura and Maitreya meet, Vidura gets the news about Krishna's disappearance, as well as he gets Atmagyan. So he gets Atmagyan directly from Maitreya. So this is the context that is being mentioned in the beginning of this chapter. So while traveling on pilgrimage, why did he go on pilgrimage? Because he left home. He got very disgusted with Duryodhan and he left home. So while he was traveling in pilgrimage, who was traveling? Vidura. Okay. So while Vidur was traveling in pilgrimage, he received the knowledge of the destination of the self, perfection of life, from the great sage Maitreya. And then, after having a conversation with Maitreya, getting all the information, then what did he do? He just didn't move on. He was thinking of his brother, Dhritarashtra, who was still in the palace and who was in such a conditioned state. So he wanted to go and help his brother to get out of this clutches of material life. So out of good intention, this Vidura, what he does is he goes back. Okay, Vidura goes back home to Hastinapur so that he can inspire his brother Dhritarashtra. So that is the context that is mentioned in the first verse. And the purport is very beautiful because it gives us an insight into each of these different characters. So the first character is obviously Vidura. And Vidura is a very prominent character in the Mahabharata. He was conceived in the womb of the maidservant of Ambika, who was the mother of Maharaj Pandu, and he was conceived by Vyasdev. So we know the story of Ambika and Ambalika. We know how Ambika, she, it should be Ambalika, right? Maharaj Pandu. Yeah. So anyway, the two queens, Ambika and Ambalika, they had children with the aid of Vyasdev, and they had Dhritarashtra and Pandu. But however, the maid servant was sent the third time, and the maid servant conceives Vidura. Okay, this Vidura, he is an incarnation of Yamaraj, and there is a story of how this Yamaraj was cursed by Manduka Muni, and he was cursed to become a Shudra, and that's how he takes on this incarnation as Vidura. The story is mentioned very nicely in this purport. All of us know the story. Sometimes this Manduka Muni is also called as Ani Mandavya Muni. Sometimes he's referred like that. So the story is that once upon a time, the state police caught some thieves who had hid themselves in the hermitage of Manduka Muni. So when the police constables, they arrested the thieves, they arrested Manduka Muni also along with them, because they thought Manduka Muni had given shelter to all these thieves. And when the magistrate punished everybody, he also superficially punished the Muni and told him that he should be sentenced to death by piercing on a lance. And when he was just about to be pierced, the news reaches the king that he is a great Muni and the act had to be stopped. So then the king comes and he begs pardon for his mistake. And the Muni at that time, he was very frustrated. At once he goes to Yamraj. He goes to Yamloka at once and he questions Yamaraj. He asks Yamaraj, how can you sentence me to such a situation? That I should be pierced on a lance, though I have not done any sin. So that is when Yamaraj says, it's not that you have not done any sin. When you were in your childhood, you had pierced an ant with a sharpened straw. And for that reason, you were put into this difficulty. So we can imagine how much sins we have done, killing so many insects and torturing innocent animals. We can imagine how much problems we might have to face. But anyway, when Yamaraj gave this reasoning, immediately the Muni said that this was wrong on part of Yamaraj, because a small innocent child should not be held accountable. He cannot be punished like this. So he says, Yamaraj, you're supposed to be Dharmaraj, but you don't even know the rules and regulations properly. A child below 12 or 13, what does he know? He's very innocent. He doesn't know anything. How can you hold him accountable and then punish him for that? So that is when he curses Yamaraj. He curses Yamaraj saying that because you have slipped from the correct dharma, you have to be born in the womb of a Shudra mother, and that is how Vidura was born. Vidura was none other than Yamaraj himself. Okay. And then in one of the other purports, may not be here, but in a later purport, he says Aryama, Prabhupada says, Aryama was stationed as Yamaraj in the interim period when Vidura was here. That's how he reconciles, because there is also this Yamaraj by the name Aryama. And he says he was the interim Yamaraj at that point in time. So like this is the story of Vidura, and Vidura was the brother of Dhritarashtra and as well as Pandu. Dhritarashtra was his elder brother. Yes, he was very attached to his elder brother, but it was not blind attachment. He always showed the right path to his elder brother, though his elder brother would never listen to him. Vidura repeatedly begged his elder brother to do justice to the son of Pandu, who were the Pandavas, because the Pandavas were ignored and tortured by Duryodhana as well as Dhritarashtra. So constantly Vidura was trying to give the right advice, but Dhritarashtra would not listen. Finally, Duryodhana did not like the interference of his uncle and he insulted Vidura. So this resulted in Vidura's leaving home for pilgrimage and taking instructions from Maitreya. But then after everything was over, he decided to come back and relieve his brother from this horrible condition. So how did he relieve him? All that is mentioned in this chapter. Text 2. यावतः कृतवान् प्रश्नान् क्षत्त कौशारवाग्रत जातकैर्भक्तिर्गोविन्दे तेभ्यश्चोपररात्मः. Anyone for translation?
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
One second. Hare Krishna. After asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna, Vidura retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni.
So Vidura, he met Maitreya. He wanted to know about the Atma Gyan, and now he had so many questions. He asked Maitreya, and after hearing all the answers from Maitreya, finally he stopped putting questions. So why did he stop putting questions? Because he was convinced by Maitreya Rishi that the summum bonum of everything is transcendental service to Sri Krishna, who's Govinda, who satisfies everybody in all respects. Purna Prakasha Prabhuji, did you have a question? You raised your hand, or was
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
yes, Mataji, sorry for interruption. Actually, for previous verse, can I ask now or you can?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, previous verse, Mataji, and Yamaraj, who was cursed to take a burn in Apple planet. So they all the demigods, right, except Lord Shiva. So everyone can, there will be a time, right, for Brahma also 100 years, and so all demigods gets changed over the period of some certain years. Mataji, even including Yamaraj and all other.
Every Manvantara, yeah.
Every Manvantara. So okay, Mataji, there was my question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Every Manvantara, yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Next.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. Okay. So anyone would like, you just read the translation, right? You just read the translation. So Maitreya Muni, he stopped putting questions when he was convinced that the summum bonum of life is to render transcendental loving service to Krishna. So he understood this is the aim of life. And Prabhupada says that when we all come to this material world, we are all seeking happiness in various ways. Anandamayobhyashat. Everyone is trying to seek happiness. And how are we seeking happiness in this world? We are trying to find happiness through our senses. That is what we are doing here. But how much ever we try, it is not giving us satisfaction. Unless we come to the ultimate goal and try to achieve happiness through Krishna conscious activities, we will never get satisfaction. So when Vidura understood that transcendental loving service to Lord Krishna is everything, that is when he stopped putting questions. Look at this. This is also our condition. When we all came to Krishna consciousness, we had so many questions. And when did we stop putting questions? When we were convinced that everything is Krishna, there is nothing beyond bhakti. Till we come to this point, we will keep asking questions. Everybody must have had their journey. I remember in the initial days, I used to keep asking so many questions. But then that once that realization comes, okay, this is the ultimate path, this is my ultimate goal, then the way you ask questions, it will stop, it will reduce gradually. You will find yourself asking less number of questions eventually. That's what happens. So Prabhupada says whether you try to do fruitive activities or you do philosophical speculation or you even do some altruistic activity, none of this is going to give you satisfaction until you follow the Vedic literatures and understand what is the ultimate goal of these Vedic literatures, which is Sri Krishna. 15:15, Prabhupada, he quotes. Very beautiful verse. Everyone knows this verse, famous verse 15:15. Here we go. सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टः मदः स्मृति ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वम् अहमेव वेद्य वेदान्तकृत वेदविदेव चाहम्. So Krishna is the ultimate goal of all the Vedas. When we understand that Krishna is the ultimate goal of all the Vedas, that is when we truly attain happiness. Okay. So that is what happened in the case of Vidura also. And Prabhupada tells us, if you're not serious and we just put questions in front of a spiritual master, that is not good. We should ask genuine questions. And the spiritual master also should not be a show bottle spiritual master. The spiritual master is a person who helps us come out of the cycle of birth and death. That is a spiritual master. So Vidura was very successful in approaching a bona fide spiritual master like Maitreya, and he understood that the ultimate goal of life is bhakti to Govinda. So, and once he understood that, there is nothing more to ask. Such a beautiful purport. And this also reflects each one of our own stories. Yeah, yes, somebody wanted to say something.
Yes, Mataji, a little bit about Maitreya Muni, Mataji. Why he's so special that Vidura approached him specifically, someone or two.
Yeah, because Maitreya was present when Krishna was departing. He happened to be the Yadrichya. By chance, he happened to be there. And actually, there's a very beautiful purport where Prabhupada in third canto will see. Prabhupada saw Uddhava and Maitreya, but then he was more inclined towards Uddhava. Because at that point, Uddhava was a very nice devotee, but Maitreya was still somewhat had impersonalist understanding at that point in time. But then later, he also becomes a great devotee in the presence of Sri Krishna, and he gets to see Krishna depart this world. And it is Krishna's indication that Maitreya should give jnana to Vidura and send him to Badrikashram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that is the significance of Maitreya Muni. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, Satyam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, I have a question. Like here it is mentioned, after Vidura got this understanding or the knowledge from Maitreya Muni, then he understood that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and devotion is the thing. But even before, like the Kurukshetra Yuddha, like when Krishna came to Vidura and then he was serving Krishna, right? So he feels like he already knew that Krishna was the Supreme.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, Prabhu. He already knew that Krishna was the Supreme. But when we read the Vidura Maitreya Samvad, Vidura had so many questions. Like just like we all may theoretically know, okay, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, there is God, his name is Krishna. One may theoretically know, but then one may have so many questions about how is Krishna God? How did he create? What makes him God? Right? Like that, you might have so many questions. So in that Samvad, when they are having in third canto, he puts a huge list of questions and he starts getting answers until the point that he's completely convinced of Sambandha Videya Prayojana. Till he comes to that point, that is when he's truly convinced. Now he knows, but then he wants it with he wants to have a full understanding through the mouth of Maitreya.
The
Okay.
conviction, now he has the conviction.
Yes, Prabhu?
Now he has the conviction with the
Conviction, yes, conviction, yes.
Mataji,
And
sorry, please. You were saying
yeah,
something.
and I said philosophical understanding as well. Sometimes we don't know how to back up our understanding properly, right? So he gets a backup for his understanding. Yeah.
Sure. Mataji, is it not like somewhere, I remember like third canto where it is mentioned, like Vidura first met Uddhava but Maitreya was elder
Yes.
than Uddhava. Then he said, that's why you go and kind of have your inquiry with the elderly person who is elder.
Yes, correct, Prabhuji. That's right. Maryada Vyatikrama, he says. I cannot instruct you because you are elderly to me and you should be hearing from Maitreya, who's much more mature than me.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
And Mataji, can I add something?
Yes.
Okay. I've just put it on the chat also, that Maitreya was one of the disciples of Maharshi Parasar. And that's how he was friend of Vyasdev. But he was not a pure devotee. That's what Prabhupada writes that. And that's how, by his great fortune, that he came at the time of Lord Krishna's departure. That's what Prabhupada writes. So I thought of sharing that. Thank you.
Jai. Yes, he was not as great as Uddhava was considered to be more favored by the Lord. The Lord was more inclined towards Uddhava. But Yadrichaya, like by chance, he had been there and he also got some mercy. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for quoting these verses. Okay. Yeah. Next. We have a lot of time today somehow. Okay. Time is going slow today. तं बन्धुमागतां दृष्ट्वा धर्मपुत्रसहानुजः धार्तराष्ट्रो युयुत्सुश्च सूत शारद्वतप्रुता गान्धारी द्रौपदी ब्रह्मन् सुभद्रा चोत्तरा कृपी अन्याश्च जामयो पाण्डोर्ज्ञातयः ससुताः स्त्रिया. So mention of all the personalities who were there. Anyone wants to read?
What did you read?
Yeah.
When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhishthira, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many other wives of the Kauravas, and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period.
Jai, thank you so much. So, when all the inhabitants they saw that Vidura had returned, remember Vidura left his bow and he went away. He felt very insulted and he went away. Now that he returned, they heard the news of Vidura is back. Immediately, everybody, Yudhishthir Maharaj, even Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Kripacharya, everybody who was present there, they all ran out to receive him. And it was like as though they had regained their consciousness after a long period of. So here we all know this, right? Satyaki's name is Yuyutsu. We see in Bhagavad Gita first chapter also. Yuyutsu and Satyaki are supposed to be identical. They are the same actually. And here, Sharadvata. Sharadvata is another name for Kripacharya. I thought those two were mentioned in the commentary by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. So he mentions that Sharadvata is the name of Kripacharya and Yuyutsu is Satyaki. So all these personalities, and of course Kripi is Kripa's sister and the wife of Dronacharya. So all of them, along with their family members, along with their sons and all the ladies, they went running to receive Vidura. Okay. Now, the characters are elaborated in Srila Prabhupada's purport. And all these characters you all would know from the Mahabharata. First and foremost thing, Gandhari. Gandhari, she is the ideal chaste lady. She was the daughter of Maharaj Subal. And she's from Kandahar, so she's Gandhari. KK Desh, Gandhar Desh, they're all identical with that area, Pakistan, Afghanistan area, with that region. We see all these ladies come from that part of the world. So now it's called as Kandahar in Kabul. That is where the location is. So the king of that area's daughter, her name was Gandhari. And she had a boon in her when she was a maiden. Before she got married, she worshipped Lord Shiva. And Gandhari was satisfied by, Gandhari satisfies Lord Shiva, and by the benediction of Lord Shiva, she gets the boon that she will have 100 sons. And later she was married to Dhritarashtra, though Dhritarashtra was blind. And once she understood that her to-be husband would be a blind man, she voluntarily ties up her eyes to be voluntarily blind. And she was a very chaste wife. And her elder brother Shakuni accompanied her and lived with her, giving all the wrong advice. And she is highly glorified to be very beautiful. Not only was she very beautiful, but she also had very great womanly qualities, and she was highly respected. But then what happened was later she became a little envious of Kunti when Kunti first gave birth to a male child. And at that time she was also pregnant, but her pregnancy was very prolonged. So because she felt envious and she was like, okay, why am I not having a child? She strikes her abdomen, and because of that, she gives birth to a lump of flesh. The child was not fully formed. The 100 children were not fully formed. So she gives birth to a lump of flesh. But then by the instruction of Vyasadeva, this lump was divided into 100 parts, and each of these were nicely taken care of in laboratories, sophisticated laboratories, so that the fetus could grow. And she finally 100 male children, 99 male children and one girl, or 100 male children and one girl, whatever the calculation is. They all came into existence. And she was, of course, very affected when her sons died in the Battle of Kurukshetra. And she in fact wanted to curse everybody, but then it was checked by Vyasadeva. So Lord Krishna tried to pacify her in various ways, and then finally she decided to retire with her husband Dhritarashtra. Both Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, they went to the jungles in the Himalayas near the mouth of the river Ganges, and they gave up their body when there was a forest fire. They got burnt in the forest fire and they gave up their bodies. And who performed their final rites? It was Yudhishthir Maharaj. So Yudhishthir, because all her sons died, right? So Yudhishthir Maharaj performs the final death ceremony of his uncle and his aunt. So this is the story of Gandhari. The other person mentioned is Pritha. Pritha Devi is Kunti Devi. And she's the sister of Vasudev, the daughter of Shurasen. And later she was adopted by Kunti Bhoj. And therefore she came to be known as Kunti. And it's so nice. We often, when we don't read Prabhupada's purports, we miss a lot of nectar. Here we go. Very nice part of Prabhupada's purport. She is the incarnation of the success potency of the personality of Godhead. Think about it, how Kunti Maharani's life was. Actually, her life was it was full of failures, right? Everything she stepped into, it was a mess. Right from she having a child before marriage, she had to get rid of that child. That's so painful for a mother. First of all, she was conceived when she was very young, and that too in a way that was not authorized by the society. And then she had to get rid of that child. She didn't know where the child was growing also. She just had to voluntarily give up the child. And then she gets married to Pandu Maharaj, and then he brings Madri, and then they're sent to the forest. And then she has to give birth to children. She cannot give birth to children because her husband is cursed. So many problems. And then with great difficulty, of course, she gets boons from Durvasa. So she's able to have children. And then she shares her mantra with her co-wife. And then the husband, he suddenly dies because of an episode where he's not able to control his senses. He dies because he's already cursed. And then the second wife, she enters fire, but Kunti had to stay back with the children. She had to raise the children. And there were constant threats for her children. Her children were continuously attacked in various ways. That's why in Kunti's Stuti also we say how she very beautifully prays that you saved me from so many different dangers, continuous troubles. And then second time when they were sent to the forest, she stayed back in the palace. By then she was old. She stayed back in the palace, but she was in constant anxiety about her children and her daughter-in-law. So she's seen a lot. But who is she? She is an incarnation of the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever it may be, whatever material situations, turmoils one may be put in, ultimately, when one is a devotee, understands everything is carried out by the will of the Lord, such a person in the eyes of Krishna is a success. So she is the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a beautiful statement of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. So anyway, continuing her story, the heavenly denizens from the upper planetary systems, they used to visit this palace of King Kunti Bhoja, and Kunti was engaged in their reception. So that way she served this great mystic sage Durvasa once, and satisfied by her service, Durvasa gives her a mantra, and with that mantra, she was able to summon any demigod she pleased. And it so happened that even before she was married, out of inquisitiveness, she once called the sun god, and the sun god said, I'm going to give you a child. She tried to decline that idea, but then the sun god told her, no, you will remain a virgin. And as a result, she becomes pregnant, and Karna was born out of her, though she was a virgin. So in another purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions, I don't know if it is this purport or somewhere else, Prabhupada mentions that she gave birth to him through the year, so he's called as Karna. I don't know which purport, but one of the purports of Srila Prabhupada, he writes that. So, and later, after she gave birth to Karna, it was a secret. She quit the child. I mean, she gave up on the child. And later she selects Pandu as her husband. And then, you know the story. I just mentioned the story. Everything is written in the purport. Maharaj Pandu wanted to retire from family life, and Kunti, she when Pandu died, Kunti couldn't give up her life. Though she gave birth to all these children with the help of demigods, she didn't give up her life. She waited and she stayed for her children, and all the sufferings of her children is mentioned. It is also mentioned how the Pandavas once they met this Hidimba and Hidimbi, and Bhima also marries Hidimbi, and he was approached by Hidimbi to give her a son, and as a combination, Gadotkacha was born, and how later Bhima goes and kills this Bakasura demon. And how she advises Yudhishthir Maharaj to go to Panchala Desh, and how Draupadi was married, and how Draupadi married all the 5 brothers. So like this, everything is mentioned. Her entire life and all her activities is mentioned. But however, Kunti never forgot her first child, Karna. And after Karna's death in the Battle of Kurukshetra, she lamented and she admitted in front of her other sons that Karna was actually the eldest. And of course, her celebrated prayers to the Lord when the Lord was ready to go back home, that we have seen in 8th chapter, that is very beautifully explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. But however, how did she retire? Later it is mentioned that she also went to the forest with Gandhari for severe penance, and she used to do so much penance that she would take meals only after every 30 days, once a month. And finally, she sat in meditation, and she was also burned in the forest fire along with Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. So that's how she gives up her life. Yes, Purna Prakasha Prabhuji.
Reaction Mataji, Mother Kunti was born Maharaj Surashen, and then later adopted by Kunti Bhoj, right, Mataji? So can you brief that story, Mataji? I don't know the story actually.
As far as I understand, in those days, generally when to have a daughter was considered auspicious in the sense that one does kanyadan, one is benefited. Okay, so when they gave an adoption, they generally gave the daughter an adoption simply because the son would be the heir to the throne. So when Kunti Bhoj wanted a daughter, he didn't have a daughter. He takes his friend's daughter in adoption. That's all I know. I don't know further details. But 2 things that I've heard. One is the reason they want a daughter is because it's considered auspicious to do Kanyadan. Secondly, it is also that the male heir cannot be given in adoption because the male heir takes over the throne. So generally the female heir is given in adoption. And that's how she is adopted by Kunti Bhoj. And Kunti Bhoj and Vasu and Sushura Sen were good friends. Yeah. That's all I've heard from her.
Both are kings and of different dynasty. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah.
Just like it's very similar to the story of our Romapad and Dasharath. Romapad and Dasharath were very good friends. Right? Am I saying it wrong? Yeah, I think it's right. Yeah. Romapad. I'm saying it right? Okay. Romapad and Dasharath were very good friends, and Shanta was given an adoption to Romapad. So we don't even hear anything about Shanta so much, except for 1 or 2 sentences mentioned in the Ramayana. And then she is brought up as the daughter of Romapad, and eventually she marries Rishi Shringa, who comes and performs the Putra Kameshti Yajna for Dasharath to have boys, because they don't have boys.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
The next character mentioned is Draupadi. Everybody knows Draupadi. She's the heroine of the Mahabharata. And of course, she's the most chaste daughter of Maharaj Drupada. And she's partly an incarnation of goddess Shachi, who's the wife of Indra. Partly, she's an incarnation of 5 different goddesses, the respective wives of these 5 demigods. The 5 Pandavas are amshas of 5 demigods, and their respective wives are put together in one amsha, that is our Draupadi. And Draupadi is sometimes also considered as an incarnation of the goddess of fortune, simply because she was a combination of so many demigoddesses, right? So she was like the goddess of fortune, not that she was a direct incarnation of the goddess of fortune. She was like the goddess of fortune. Okay. So Maharaj Drupad, actually, how did she appear? Maharaj Drupad, he performed a great sacrifice under the superintendence of the great sage Yaja. And by the first offering, the boy was born and his name was Drishtadyumna. And then by the second offering, Draupadi was born. So she was the sister of Drishtadyumna, and she's also called as Panchali because she was the daughter of the Panchala king. Panchala king. So she's called as Panchali. And later the five Pandavas, they married her as a common wife. And each of these five Pandavas, they begot one son in her. Yudhishthir Maharaj's son through Draupadi was Pratibhit. Bhimasena's son through Draupadi was Sutasoma. Arjun's son was Shrutakirti and Nakula's was Shatanika and Sahadeva's was Shrutakarma. So like this, she begot five sons, and she was actually described as a very, very beautiful lady, dark complexion. She's also called as Krishna because she always had Krishna in her heart, and also she was dark complexion because she appeared from fire. And she was exquisitely beautiful, and she was equal to her mother-in-law Kunti in various ways. And she was born. There was a message. There was an Akashavani that declared when she was born that she is going to be the cause of many Kshatriyas' death. Of course, she was the one who was the cause of the entire Mahabharata war. And by her, in a previous birth, she asked for a husband 5 times to Lord Shankara, to Lord Shiva. And as a result of that, she ends up having 5 husbands, which is quite abnormal in the Vedic tradition. She ends up having 5 husbands. And she was married to the Pandavas during the exile in the forest. And when they went back home, actually, this Arjun, he said, look at what I have brought. And Kunti Maharani says, why don't you 5 of you share? And then, of course, she becomes the daughter-in-law of them and being the wife of all the 5 of them. And it is mentioned Drupad also eventually he accepted the marriage and he gave a lot of wealth as dowry. And during the gambling game, Dasat Sabha, she was disrobed, and even Dronacharya and Bhishma were present. But because she was a great devotee of Lord Sri Krishna, by her praying itself, Lord Krishna, he manifested as an unlimited sari and protected her, his dear friend Draupadi. And she was one of the ladies who were kidnapped multiple times. Just like in the Ramayana, we have Sita as everyone wants to kidnap Sita, like that. Everyone wanted to kidnap this Draupadi. There was a demon by the name Jatasura who kidnapped her, but her second husband, he was the strongest. He was the most proactive husband, Bhimasen. He killed the demon and saved her. She saved the Pandavas from the curse of Maharishi Durvasa by the grace of Krishna. She was the one who prayed to Krishna, and Krishna came when that little 1 grain of shakanam, that is greens mixed with rice, was remaining. Krishna comes and eats that, and then Durvasa's hunger is satisfied. When she was living incognito the last year, they were in the palace of Virata, and at that time Kichaka was attracted to her beauty, and of course it was again Bhima only who actually saved her and killed him. And she was very much aggrieved when her 5 sons that were born from the 5 Pandavas were killed by Ashwatthama. That story we have already seen in the previous chapter. And however, she showed her womanly nature, and she even forgave this Ashwatthama. So a very classy woman. She has shown great character at various points in time, but at the same time, she was a Kshatriya woman. She knew her rights and she knew how to deal with situations. So the cause of her fall, when at the last stage of life, she accompanied her husband Yudhishthir, and as they were climbing up, one by one, everyone started falling. The first person who fell down was Draupadi. And why did she fall? The cause was explained by Yudhishthir, that Draupadi, the cause of her falling was explained by Yudhishthir. That is not mentioned in Prabhupada's purport, but Mahabharata says that she was especially affectionate towards Arjun because Arjun was the one who got her hand in Swayamvar. That is not mentioned here. But then Prabhupada continues to say, but when Yudhishthir entered the heavenly planet, he saw Draupadi gloriously present there as the goddess of fortune of the heavenly planets. So this is the caliber of Draupadi. The next personality mentioned is Subhadra.
Correction, Mataji.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, Mataji. Yeah. Question is actually all Pandavas went to heavenly planet, but they are the devotees, right, Mataji?
Yeah,
But-
Bhagavatam will promote them to spiritual world, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yes. So when we read Mahabharata, it appears everyone just goes to heaven. But then in Bhagavatam, when we read, we understand eventually they all attain the spiritual.
Okay.
So, Nisha Mataji?
Mataji, I have a question regarding Kunti Devi. When
Yeah.
she was given the boon by Durvasa Muni, and she tried to test that, was she given the boon that if she calls one of the demigods, she will get a son? Or like, why did she end up getting a son only in the boon?
Yeah, that is what the purport explains. That though she didn't want, the sun god said, no, once you summon me by this particular mantra, I'm bound to give you a child. The mantra itself is that, yeah.
Was for a child, but she didn't know that.
She didn't know that, yeah. She just wanted to, out of curiosity, does this really work? So,
Okay.
little girl, 13-year-old girl, she didn't
Yeah.
know anything. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
Subhadra, yeah, the daughter of Vasudev.
Hare
And
Krishna Mataji.
yeah, yes, Prabhu.
Sorry, one question, Mataji. Like what Prabhuji was asking that Pandavas did go to Swarga or they go to Krishna's abode. Both Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam was written by Vyasadeva, right? So why there is the same author writing two different things in two different
It is meant
scriptures?
for different kinds of audiences. The Mahabharata is for those after Dharma, Artha, Kama, mainly, and then a little bit of Moksha. It is a different type of audience. Like sometimes, depending on the audience, we give some information, we withhold some information. Right? It's like that. So this Bhagavatam is meant for exalted. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalaya Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvipavakaha. It's the ripened fruit that's giving you the highest goal of life.
Thank you. And is it also appropriate to consider that Vyasadeva has written those scriptures before he met Narad Muni and he was not lamenting, but when he was not satisfied, then he met Narad Muni, and after that he actually wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, probably with more realization.
Of course. Yes, 100%, 100%. Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
Also, Mataji, may I add something?
Yes. Yeah.
Also, I read somewhere that Swarga also
Yes,
means
can also mean
Vaikuntha.
Vaikuntha.
Yeah, that's
100%.
right.
I wanted to say that next because when it comes to Ramayana, immediately this question will be asked. In Ramayana, everywhere Swarga is mentioned. So what are you talking about? So immediately the Acharya in the commentaries, they say Swarga is also a name for Vaikuntha, like Praladananda Prabhu just mentioned. Yes. So it has to be taken according to context. But the spirit of Mahabharata is more about Swarga. If you see many cases, it's more about going to higher realms. And it stops there. It doesn't discuss further their journey. So that's why Prabhupada also, he just talks from the Mahabharata point of view here, but heavenly planet, he just stops there because that's how it is mentioned for now. But then, like Praladanand Prabhu said, when you read Ramayana, you'll find Swarga and you'll be shocked. Why would Ramchandra and the associates go to Swarga? No, they're going to Vaikuntha because Swarga is the place that is the most resplendent place, which also indicates Vaikuntha. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Anyone? Yes.
When you were in childhood, we used to listen this story, like we heard this story, like when all the Pandavas go towards the north to this, there was like a dog followed them. Is it?
Yeah. It's there in the Mahabharata. Yeah.
So, what was the story about that dog?
I think that dog was Dharma, right? Whoever remembers the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and only the most qualified person could go in his own body, and that was Yudhishthir Maharaj. Yeah, the rest of them had to drop at some point. And then finally a chariot comes and Yudhishthir and the dog, they go. Right.
Thank you.
Mataji, I understand that Dharmaraj accompanied Yudhishthir Maharaj as a dog. And
Dog,
when Yudhishthir was asked to leave the dog behind, he refused. He said, I don't want to go without the dog. That's where Dharmada said, I was testing you, that. So this is what I also heard. Like, thank you.
Haribol. Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, so both of them, they board the plane and they go. Nice.
He cannot leave his dad anyway, right?
I know, right? So such a good boy. Yes. Okay. Subhadra Devi. Everyone knows Subhadra Devi, sister of Sri Krishna, daughter of Vasudev. And she was not only the very dear daughter of Vasudev, but also the very dear sister of both Krishna and Balram. And three of them are seen in the Jagannath Puri temple. And this temple is a remembrance of Lord Sri Krishna's visit to Kurukshetra on the occasion of the solar eclipse and the subsequent meeting with the residents of Vrindavan. That is the significance of the Jagannath temple, Krishna and separation. The meeting of Radha and Krishna during this occasion is a very pathetic story. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his ecstasy of Radharani, he always paid for Krishna at Jagannath Puri. So when we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, we see this very beautiful emotion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he often saw Jagannath and he exhibited symptoms of ecstasy. Eventually, the Subhadra, she was married to Arjun. Actually, he wanted Subhadra to be his queen and he expressed his desire to Krishna. And Krishna knew that already Balaram was trying to arrange Subhadra's marriage with Lakshman Kumar, I think that was his name, with Duryodhan's daughter. But then Arjun, he decided to kidnap Subhadra. Actually, Subhadra kidnaps Arjun. It's the other way around. She's the one who drives the chariot, and this idea is given by Sri Krishna. And Balaram was very angry with this, but then later he was pacified. And Subhadra was married to Arjun, and they have a son by the name Abhimanyu. And Abhimanyu's son is the Parikshit that we are talking about. Okay, the reason this whole thing happened, Krishna had a plan. He knew Parikshit has to stay back and there would be one heir from this side, and he wanted this marriage to happen so that Abhimanyu would be born and eventually Parikshit Maharaj, the great devotee, would remain to rule the world. Pratyuja. Yes, Lord.
Sorry, Mataji. As Abhimanyu, there's a story like why Abhimanyu was killed so young age. I heard this. He was
son of Chandra. Yeah.
Is that okay? Then the story like.
Yeah. Chandra said, I cannot be separated from my son for too long. Then he's told that it's okay, he can come and participate. He will come back within 16 years of earthly years. He'll be back united with you. Right?
Yes. I was just thinking, is it the right story or not?
Yeah, it is the right story.
Mataji, also we saw like two instances. One is Abhimanyu because Chandra wanted him to back, right?
Mm.
And also Vishmadev, all his like brothers were when Ganga Devi was just putting the child into the river, right? There's also a story behind that, like they have to. So I was thinking like Draupadi and Pandavas, those 5 sons of Draupadi. Do they have like similar stories, like they were king? Like, is there anything mentioned in Mahabharata?
I've not heard of the stories of the 5 brothers.
Okay.
If anyone else has heard, they can.
Thank you, Mataji.
So, Mataji,
Yes,
Abhimanyu learned only the art of penetrating Chakravyuh. He did not learn the art of coming out of it because his mother went to sleep when Arjun was explaining. Also heard.
Yes, Prabhu. And but interestingly, when Kayadu went to sleep, Prahlad was awake. Yes. Pratyujagmu prahasrena pranam tanva ivagatam abhisangamya vidivat parishvana vanghabhivadhinah. Translation, anyone? Anyone?
With great
With-
delight.
Go ahead, Prabhu, please.
With great delight, they all approached him, as if life had returned to their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces.
Yes, and who was this? Whom did they go to? They all went to receive
Vidura.
Vidura. Vidura, right? So we should not forget the trail of thought, because these purports are so big, we forget what happened in the story. So this was Vidura. Everyone ran to receive Vidura. All these characters that we mentioned, they all went to receive Vidura. And the beautiful analogy of how they approached him, when they approached him, it was like as if the life had returned into their bodies. So Prabhupada says in the purport that the absence of consciousness means at that time the limbs are not active when the consciousness is not there. But then when the consciousness comes back, the limbs and the senses, they become active and you feel delightful. So this means that Vidura was so dear to them that in their absence, they were not able to do anything. And the minute Vidura came, they felt so joyful. They were suffering in separation, but the minute Vidura came, they felt like as if their life had come back to them. Mumuchuhu prema bhashpaugham virahautkantya karana rajatam arhayam chakre kritsana parigrahanam. Anyone for translation?
I can read, Mataji.
Yeah.
Due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. King Yudhishthira then arranged to offer sitting accommodations and a reception.
For the person who had just traveled and come, he ensured that he was comfortably seated. Nice sweet words are spoken and water is given. This is what you do when you receive someone. You give them a place to sit, you give them some water to drink, and you speak some sweet words. How are you? How was your travel? And so on. So that is what happens. Tam bhuktvantam vishrantam ashinam sukamasane prashrayavanto raja prahatesham cha shrunvatam. After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. The king then began to speak to them, and all who were present, they listened to what the king had to speak. Who's the king? The king is Yudhishthir. So this Yudhishthir Maharaj, he was an expert in reception, and he received Vidura very nicely. And when they receive each other, the family members, they exchange embraces and obeisances. After that, there were bathing arrangements made, and a sumptuous dinner was served, and he was given sufficient rest. After rest, he was given a nice place to sit, and he began to speak about all the happenings that that had transpired in this period of time. So this is the way to receive a beloved friend or even an enemy, Prabhupada says. According to Indian culture, even an enemy should be received home very nicely. They should not feel fearful when they come to your house. So they should be received in a proper way. An enemy is always afraid of his enemy, but he should not be afraid when he is received in the home by an enemy. This means that the person, when received at a home, he should be treated as a relative. And what to speak about a family member like Vidura, who was a true well-wisher of all the members of the family. So like this Yudhishthir Maharaj, he began to speak in the presence of all the other family members. So from Yudhishthira Uvacha, we will see in the next class, because it's a separate
Mataji,
section.
one small doubt, Mataji. No mention is made about Vidura's wife, Mataji, anywhere here.
Here it's not mentioned, yeah.
Because when he left, obviously she would have been back here, and even when it was received, she would have been there. But we are not getting any references about her. Is it
Right.
correct, Mataji, or there's somewhere it is mentioned? I don't know.
No, you are right. You're right. Yeah, we didn't get any reference about her. Even in the list of people who
Yes, in one place it's mentioned that she was born in the womb of a Brahmana, and he got married, if I remember. That is the only
Yeah.
thing I read. Any other place is mentioned, Mataji, later on at least. I don't know.
I don't think.
Okay, Mataji. That makes sense.
If you find
Also,
something, I'll tell you.
Yes.
Also, Mataji, there is a story about her that she welcomed Lord Sri Krishna, and instead of giving the banana pulp, she was feeding the
Banana
skin.
peels.
She was so engrossed like that. But her other details are not available, I don't think.
Yeah, in one purport, like we read earlier, she's mentioned her name, her father, mother, and all is mentioned, right? Like she comes from a particular Kshatriya family and some Shudra wife and Kshatriya father, and a little bit about her is mentioned in a purport. Yeah. Okay. So then we can end here if there are no other questions. And from Yudhishthira Vacha, what he inquires from Vidura, we will see in the next session. And you all don't have any exam. Yeah, you're all fine. Okay. Bhakti Shastri are the one who exam. We will end here. Vancha kalpattaro descha kripa sindhu bhevacha paridhanam bhavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Nandakoti Vaishnav Vranda ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, dear devotees. Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.